Sonic the Hedgehog has had an interesting career. He started out as a successful rival to Mario, despite his games offering less. Then he had some bad games that people gave a pass for some reason. Then he had some really bad games that became a meme. Then everybody started liking those bad games ironically. Now we're in an era where people are defending those bad games unironically. People become excited over a new Sonic game because they want to see how bad he gets. Give themselves a good chuckle and move on, to wait for the next announcement. It sucks, man, it really does. Sonic never gets his due. This is coming from someone who was a fan of Sonic. I didn't have the problem of which console you owned, I had both, if you list Nintendo and Super Nintendo under the same category. Even when I was a kid, I made my own Sonic OCs, before he even went 3D. Kinda hard to believe now that became a thing years later. Sonic used to do his own thing, but then he started imitating Mario games. Poorly. Mario had a galaxy, so Sonic got a galaxy. Mario had an Odyssey, so Sonic got an Odyssey. Not only is Sonic not getting good games, but his audiences actually encourage it. Would rather something broken or cringy come out. Get some streamer or YouTuber to play it so that they can laugh at it. Even when they re-release older Sonic games, they somehow come out worse. How can a 30-year-old game come out on modern consoles in worse condition? Come on guys, is this really all you want? Bad gameplay, bad design, bad stories, and very weird porn. Sonic can have good games, he can work in 3D, you gotta believe. Also, I'm not someone who can like something that is so bad it's good. I prefer playing a good game. Some people have taken inspiration from Sonic and went on to make their own Sonic games. So there's definitely some people out there who also want good Sonic games. Fucking hell, I would even say Pizza Tower is a better Sonic game than most Sonic games. Someone has to do it. Let's have a look at some ideas. We need to scale back on the size, stop aiming for world-ending threats. Just make a good game that proves he can work. I made fun of it before, but I think we could aim for the same goal Mario 64 had. When they were developing Mario 64, it was their first real step into 3D. Their first goal was to make sure Mario can work. They developed a simple room with a rabbit that ran away from Mario. They playtested the fuck out of getting Mario to chase the rabbit. They kept changing the coding, the numbers, until it felt right on how Mario moved. Sonic never received the same treatment, or if he did, they didn't put in the elbow grease. Pretty much in every game, he always felt off. Even in good games, he had trouble walking up slight inclines. That's our aim, to get him to work. Let's make Sonic 64. He borrowed every other Mario game, but not the most important one. I don't care if we have to go into the code and start adjusting his speed down to the 5th decimal. Get him to work. Let's get the game's premise out of the way, the setup. One day Sonic is running about, minding his own business when he's knocked about by a red blur. He gets knocked into a large ring that transports him to the game's hub zone. I know new characters in Sonic games have really gotten out of hand, but we're going to do something different here. There's pretty much only two characters in this game. Sonic, and the Speed Demon, who's a contrast to Sonic with a color scheme of red and black. Give him a kind of gremlin-like posture, maybe even have some exhaust pipes in place of his horns or sticking out of his back to make him look naturally unnatural. The point of his design is to emphasize the idea of speed, but in a diesel punk kind of way. Give him flannel if we have to. He boasts that he's the fastest in the world and he's sick of hearing Sonic going off about being the fastest. So he wants to test him. He challenges Sonic to a race, but will only race him if Sonic can prove he's worthy by taking on his challenges. For each challenge he completes, he'll get a ribbon. Have enough ribbons and he'll race him. Sonic accepts his challenge because he's Sonic. It's what he does. This is the idea of where Mario 64 comes from. Instead of collecting stars, it's ribbons. Unless we can come up with something better. The total amount of ribbons the player needs and the total amount that are available can be changed around. Aiming for about 80% requirement. That number can be like 100 total ribbons or 80 total ribbons. whatever we need to make it consistent with a nice round number. The hub has different paths to giant rings that represent each world, maybe about 8 worlds. The design of the hub isn't that important, but after finishing the whole game, we can look back and see how we can make it more lively. We might restrict the worlds to needing to complete at least one ribbon from the previous world to unlock. Each new world has the same first challenge to introduce the world before opening up all other challenges, to help ease players into them. I liked in Sonic Advance when they introduced a burst start. We can do the same with these rings. You jump into one, the level loads up, and launches you out so that you can hit the ground running. What about the first world? Well, Green Hill Zone sounds about right, but players are kinda sick of it. Let's come up with something new. How about some Autumn Season level? Autumn Lane Zone? Autumn Fall Zone? While people like to complain about brown and grey worlds, with Autumn we can put in a lot of emphasis on brown, red and yellow. Running through this area will make dried leaves spit up, with a nice crunchy sound effect on each step. Ooh, that might make certain Sonic artists on the internet too happy. For no reason, we can have piles of leaves strewn about that explode when you fly through them. Maybe even smacking into a tree causes leaves to shatter down. What about the controls? First things first, we're cutting down and capping that speed limit. Wild concept, I know. How can you make a Sonic game without speed? That's his gimmick. But really, they've done nothing interesting with it. In fact, they've made it too easy. Even as far back as Sonic 2, where you could easily spin dash by just pressing a button and smashing through everything. You might even count Sonic 1 there with the speed power up. The one that would most likely cause you to accidentally die. I know this sounds blasphemous because Sonic is known for his speed. Games were designed around it. Even the simple loop. It can only be bypassed with high speed. It feels great going so fast that you can run up walls. Or like how in Sonic 3 you have to go so fast to run around the inside of this tree in order to reach the top. It's just that they made speed so easy, and as the games went along, it made speed so easy that it doesn't feel like a reward anymore. Without the limitation of being unable to run through a loop without the necessary speed, it doesn't feel special anymore. Sonic's basic running speed should be decent, with high speed being the reward for good play, not the default. Kinda like the original games where high speed was usually due to rolling, we're gonna do the same. Running has high acceleration with medium speed, but good control. At any time you can press the right trigger to curl into a ball. The momentum of your running is added and you use the environment to increase your speed. However, your control in turning is slightly limited. The player has to learn when to run, curl into a ball, and pop out to navigate the level. Running for control, rolling for speed. Press circle or R1 for brake, maybe even drifting. Kinda like he's a car. As the player gets used to this, they'll start zipping and zooming around the level after they've gained personal experience with the controls. To avoid players rapidly tapping to abuse gaining the benefits of both, we'll just add in a small delay between usage. Pressing it causes Sonic to throw his arms up and then swing them down into a curl. Letting go will show Sonic uncurl from a ball and do a cartwheel or two as he aligns himself up. What about players that are a bit slow on this? Let's help them with some slow motion. Just a simple press of a button to slow down the game to let players see where they're running. In fact, we can also improve this a bit more. Pulling the left trigger will slow the game down to a crawl, giving you a small moment to think or adjust yourself. There's another function, giving Sonic a kind of twist or flourish move. Pressing left or right will cause Sonic to slide in that direction while time is slowed. This can be used to adjust yourself while running through levels in order to keep the flow going, or used to avoid traps and dangers. If a player already knows where they're going, we can code the slow motion to turn off the moment you sidestep. This is so that advanced players aren't slowed down by the mechanics, just pull and flick to keep going. Maybe even pressing jump to give Sonic a little hop that does the same thing. We could also explore using this to help Sonic jump on enemies, not with the homing attack. It was always lame and an easy way to get Sonic to jump on an enemy. Just jump onto an enemy, and if it looks like you're going to miss, make a quick adjustment. That's pretty much as far as control goes for Sonic. I don't want to explore any gimmicks to try and make the gameplay interesting. I want to make the core gameplay interesting. Even though that seems so simple, it's only half the equation of the gameplay. The rest comes from level design. Levels will be designed to move in a loop, in circles, or even like a highway. When running through the main pass, you can take grind rails, loops, or springs to change to a different path or area. This is what the main purpose of stuff like grind rails are for, just to change direction. The majority of the time this stuff is just there, where the game plays itself. Sometimes there comes challenges, but for the most part they're kinda lame. While we're at it, we're also going to remove that weird ring line grind ability. That thing was always dumb. Add stuff like ramps or even half pipes. These can also be used as shortcuts when you gain enough high speed to complete challenges. Each level will have a new mechanic that will be more like a test that alters the core gameplay. The first level I've already mentioned, there really isn't a gameplay difference, it's just to let the players get used to the controls and basic gameplay. Following levels will each have a new mechanic. For example, the second level can be a wet or water based level. There can be puddles of water around that causes Sonic to lose traction. The challenge is to get used to drifting and learn how to slide around corners. There can also be pools of water, but falling in will cause the screen to fade out and respawn Sonic at the edge. Running at high speeds will allow Sonic to dash for a small amount of distance, but rolling will cause a skipping effect, like tossing a thin stone. And the challenge will be to learn how to skip across water without falling in. Figuring out how to aim before skipping across the water to get where you want to go. Another level can have constant thunderstorms. As you run around, you start attracting lightning and have to run by pylons scattered around the map to dodge the lightning. Also using lightning on devices to open a pass or something. Needing to learn timing so you can safely move through the map while dodging lightning. Each level will have something like this, something new for the players to learn and adjust to. We can also explore how enemies will work within the maps, and how to utilize power-ups. There will be several challenges for each level to earn ribbons. The first ribbon will be a simple Find the Ribbon challenge, to let players learn the rules and layout of the level. Ribbons will then become more challenging that requires knowledge of the map and rules to earn. For example, each map will have like 4 ribbon pieces or 4 blue rings scattered around. When you grab one, a time limit will start dropping and you need to dash around the map to collect the rest. The player has the freedom to start at any location and collect them in any order. This will require knowledge of the map so you know the paths to move around and all the shortcuts to collect them within the time limit. If you run out of time, whatever you've collected is taken and returned to their original locations. The paths used to collect them could end up being unique to players. A certain path would be ideal for one player while a different path would be ideal for another. Another challenge I stole from those egg thieves from Spyro. A little speed gremlin will be holding a ribbon and run away from you when you approach him. You have to use your knowledge of the maps to chase him while gaining speed and taking shortcuts to cut him off. Another idea I like from the Sonic Advance series are the running bosses. We could even explore doing the same on these levels, where they would have their own methods of avoiding and attacking Sonic. Can even look into the same 100 gold coin challenge from Mario 64, but with the rings from Sonic. The challenge is the same. After replaying the map so many times for all the other ribbons, you'll be familiar and know where all the rings will be, and now gotta move around the whole map to collect most of them in a single life. There will be more challenges and ideas to explore, but the general idea is for all of them to add something to the gameplay or challenge. The player will end up mastering the controls and mastering the maps to complete all challenges, or at least the minimum. When the player is ready, they'll move on to the final challenge. The Speed Demon will challenge him to a race that will travel through all zones. The final exam of the game. You now will be truly tested in the gameplay and all zones, as you now have to move through all of them while he attempts to slow you down. Probably the one time in the game we push up the hype when racing the Speed Demon, where his theme plays when he's winning, but it switches to Sonic, the player, starts winning. Have guitars scream into the climax, maybe even use Live and Learn to give modern Sonic fans some treatment. Beating the Speed Demon will be the ultimate reward for the player. They rose to the challenge and took it all on. They have beaten the game for what it was. To make sure it all works, we'll be working double time in the background to make sure the game and coding works. To make sure the game is fun and challenging and working. Ultimately proving that Sonic can have good games. He can work in 3D. We just need someone working on it to have a better vision. As cringy, memey, and funny Sonic's career has been, he does deserve better.